Whether your ideal summer destination is those white sand beaches of Krakoa or the rust-red dust storms of Arakko, toss on some flip-flops and settle in for Arakko Public Radio, episode 42, day 7, the grand finale of Shark Girl Week 2023, our week-long celebration of the X-Men and summer break. Today, we are relaxing, we are partying, it is a barbecue on the beach. We have a different guest for each book as we talk about the books that came out the week of June 7th, 2023, as we're almost there, almost to the fall of X. I'm that nerdy Papa Bear, and this is the guy who finally has to admit it was a good idea to read The Further Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix, my one and only co-mega mutant Keegan.
Yo, yeah.
Did you catch how heavy was it X-Men 23 references our girl Rebecca from, and not like just in a broad sense. It's very heavily referencing the shit we read when I forced you to read that ancient book.
You know, it's funny because like we did read that and it was like not terrible, but it was, not my favorite style of comic because I'm not a big exposition heavy person.
But then it ended up being way more relevant.
It ended up being so useful. Such useful information. Good call.
I know. Honestly, a lot of it ended up not being intentional. But that's still, I will take all the credit. In this episode, at the beach party, we're going to grill some burgers, we're going to flip some dogs, and we're going to talk about X-Men Before the Fall, Mutants First Strike number 1, Bishop War College number 5, Immortal X-Men number 12, X-Men 23, and then we're going around the Marvel Universe with Invincible Iron Man number 7, and if you make me talk about it, Deadpool Batter Blood number 1 by Rob Liefeld.
Ugh.
And to talk X-Men 23, we're welcoming back SheaBearing. It has been forever. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you all doing tonight?
We are doing good.
We're rocking it.
Woo-hoo.
I see Keegan did some laundry because we've been rocking Hawaiians all week, and he had to skip it last night, but dressed back up.
Man, you should have told me. I would have brought out my florals, or at
No
least
worries.
the top.
Because I have a thematic question for you. We are asking everyone that we bring in if they had to go on a summer vacation in Marvel Comics, where they'd go. But you know what? Before we get your answer to that, you just went on a really fun real-world vacation. Tell me about Zurich. Tell me about Zurich with a 2-year-old.
Yes, I went to. No, she's still 1. She turns 2 in an hour and a half.
Ooh, that big birthday energy.
Yeah, it was actually really, really great. Zurich is a beautiful city. We stayed in Old Town, and so everything was walkable. It was wonderful. It was so much fun seeing my daughter experience a completely new city. She loved the fountains. There are 1,200 fountains at least in Zurich, apparently.
Oh,
She's obsessed with fountains, so that was great for her. And there was the river. We took a day trip out to Rhine Falls, which is the largest waterfall in Europe, apparently. It kind of sucks compared to waterfalls in America, but,
that's some American exceptionalism for you.
Everything's bigger in the States, but it was such a wonderful trip, and it was great. It was assuring to go with my daughter and know that we could travel with her. It's different traveling with a kid, but it's still special in a lot of ways.
That's awesome. You've shared a couple really great pictures with us, and you've mentioned that it's going to be memories for you and not necessarily memories for her at that age, but the pictures mean that it will be. Like, she's going to look back on it forever as this really brave thing. As a parent that had a kid that age, a very brave thing you guys did, and I think that's really cool.
Oh, we were terrified going into it, and I swear, and my husband and I were both joking. We thought about suggesting we cancel the trip in the lead up to it, just because we're like so freaked out about taking her on a plane. But yeah, she did great. We're very proud of her. She's amazing.
That's so cool it worked out. So to the Marvel side of it, if you couldn't go to Zurich, you had to go to a Marvel destination for a summer break, where would it be?
Christ, I guess. Maybe Wakanda, because the less bad things happen there if they're willing to let me in and, see the culture. It sounds like a really great country. I know I'm very white, but so they might not want me. But, not a lot of things, bad things seem to happen within the walls. Because I'm thinking if you go to Krakoa, something bad's going to happen. Any other place, something bad happens. I guess Savage Land would be my next guess because dinosaurs are cool.
That
And
was
there's
my answer, but I specified like I need like Wolverine or something as an escort. We're going this big of a fantasy because
There was a really cute Ed Brubaker comic from X-Men with Scott and Emma on a little vacation to Savage Land, which is really precious. So if I can pretend I'm as good as them at doing things, it seemed nice.
I have a really vague recollection of that. I'm gonna have to go back and read that again for sure. Okay, you guys want to talk X-Men 23?
Let's talk X-Men 23.
All right, written by Jerry Dugan, drawn by Joshua Cassara. It opens with Dr. Stasis on the Orcus Forge eating a meal with the clones of his family, as seen way back in issue 2. They die at the conclusion of the meal, and he's interrupted by Mother Righteous, who's disgusted by the spectacle. Dr. Stasis is confused by her appearance, immediately recognizing her as Rebecca and fully aware she wasn't one of his own creations. Mother Righteous insists she hasn't been Rebecca Essex in many lifetimes, and that just like the other 3, she was but one of the 4 clones the original Essex made before he passed. A sinisterized Rebecca, if you will. He does, however, make it clear that he isn't to clone her or their son ever again, and when he offers an alliance, she rebuffs him. The intro data page is a Cyclops quote. One thing leading the X-Men has taught me, it's important to have options. A Stark Sentinel rescues firefighters from a collapsing building, though its goodwill mission goes awry when it detects one of the firefighters as a mutant and attacks. The X-Men show up to stop it. Cyclops puts Firestar in charge, and she leads Iceman and Forge in, but they merely make a dent in it. Cyclops calls in Jean, Synch, and Talon, urging Synch to bring Polaris' powers. Forge attempts to hack it and gets flicked away. Cyclops catches the Sentinel's attention as a prime target, and Magic shows up with the backup. Synch is shocked to discover that it has anti-magnetism countermeasures. He gets absolutely crushed and is barely able to absorb Talon's healing factor in time to survive. An infuriated Magic spreads pieces of the Sentinel across the universe. Cyclops asks, how many of these things do you think there are? And Forge is like, you probably don't want to know. I'm going to go visit Tony, find out what patents he's got out there. The trio of Dr. Stasis, Nimrod, and Fei Long are hanging out on Randall's Island discussing their victory, and Dr. Stasis reveals that they've somehow compromised Magic when she got a cut on her face. At a bare minimum, they can track her via his phone, and that they wanted to do the same to Jean but weren't able to. But Nimrod insists not to fret. He's going to get her and the other Omegas next. A data page reveals an op-ed Dr. Stasis published in every major newspaper where he attempts to frame Orcus as necessary to protect the world and basically a replacement shield. And then in the epilogue, back on Krakoa, we see Emma Frost giving Kingpin the terms of his Krakoan immunity, that he's on a really short leash. And Cyclops shows up at Emma's request and assumes that she's heard about his relationship troubles with Jean. She assures him she hadn't even heard, and that she called him to break the news about Miss Marvel dying. Emma critically implies that synergy is coming, and apologizes to Scott for his relationship troubles. There isn't enough love in this world. All right, I want to save the Miss Marvel stuff for maybe the end of our conversation because I have a feeling that's going to be pretty negative. So let's kind of go chronologically and talk about the Mother Righteous being at least partially a Rebecca clone. And
I was just going to say, I called it.
I think it came up in a few forms in a few different places. I remember Joe at one point had mentioned that he thought it. I had actually written it off because it felt like if that was going to be revealed, it would have come up in Sins of Sinister. She calls them brothers multiple times, which has kind of icky implications now to an extent. So I don't know. I'm wondering how recent of a decision it was that she was a Rebecca, I guess, or...
I mean, that's a valid thing. It's weird to think about, if she's a Rebecca clone / OG Essex clone, hybrid together almost.
Yeah, they don't really dig too deep into it. So is it she's half and half? Is she a chimera of the two Essexes? Or is she just a sinisterized Rebecca, like what we saw with the Sinister clones in Sins of Sinister? And maybe we'll get that eventually. It just all feels like weird timing to me that we didn't find this out in the timeline or 6 months ago. But I like it. It adds some intrigue.
It's an interesting addition to the lore. I don't think it was necessary we find out during Sins of Sinister just to keep her as an ongoing character, so to speak. But
Sure. I've been
all I got away from
praise.
is that she really doesn't like shoes.
The barefoot thing surprised me. I'm kind of fallen in love with Mother Righteous as a character. Like, she's instantly in the top tier of their villains for me. So I love that she's sticking around right away. I've seen some people online that are like, why right after SOS are we still having her as a major player? But I'm, for one, down for all the Mother Righteous we can get right now. I'm not sick of her yet.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of the road. Like, I like her, but I do worry she might get soon to be overexposed, so to speak. It just depends on how her arc plays out.
I imagine her story can't overlap with Orcus much, so it would seem that this will simmer in the background through Fall of X, maybe, but maybe not.
Maybe I just want to break from Sinisters. Like, we've had a lot of Sinisters lately.
I mean, I think, also at the end, her plot, like, not as in story, but plot as in her plan, isn't over. So, of course, she's still going to be featured. I don't think that there's, too much of her yet just because of that. But we'll see how that does play in with Fall of X. I mean, maybe she'll use Fall of X to capitalize on her plan even further.
You have been kind of our relationship expert, for what is worth, Shea. So,
wow.
We talked during the Brood arc. I don't remember if we talked late enough that Scott and Jean had their fight yet. Were you on to chat with us about the actual fight they had?
I don't think so. I will say, I am a known Jean Scott hater. I don't like the ship. I think their breakup is so dumb, or it's just like so inorganic that I'm like, oh, come on.
I was surprised how quickly it moved. That this issue talked about them not having embraced in a long time, and like it felt like I thought it was gonna be a slow brewing like schism where they got more and more angry with each other. Not that scene we saw in the Brood was apparently like the breaking point.
I feel like it was just bad writing on Duggan's part because he's just like, you could have like threaded the seeds. He's been writing this for 2 years. Like, you could easily thread the seeds of Jean and Scott like having issues because it's very easy to do. You could just say, they got together after they're both traumatic deaths and resurrections because they felt like they should. And, they finally had their family together, so they thought they'd do it the college try, but, they're different people than they were when they first fell in love. Like, you could easily weave that seed in a way over the course of several issues rather than being like, we're arguing over the genocide of the Brood and we're done now. And then bam, bam, it's over.
Well, he's had the book long enough that we're almost to our third cast for it. We went through one whole year and we're about to have a third. So you're right. There's no reason for them not to have been seeds planted. And fighting over the fate of the Brood was definitely a jarring fight. And we at least talked on Discord, you and I, about that. It was that it was a neat fight in the moment because both sides had an arguable, like, oh yeah, they have a point they're making that's valid. But if anything, that should have been an early breadcrumb to an eventual split. It doesn't make sense as the split.
Yeah, like I could see it being like the kickoff thing of them reevaluating things, but not.
But apparently that was it.
That's like okay.
Yeah, it's weird because like in theory, because everything happened off screen for this issue. It could be the thing that kicks off like a discussion and then a fight and then, all that. But we don't get that. We just get that they argued about the Brood and now they are done.
And from an abstract perspective, like if you asked me, would there ever be a high-profile X-Men couple that the entire breakup happened off screen? Like, that just sounds like ridiculous. Like, why would you do that?
I mean, they entirely got back together more or less off screen. So.
That's true. But why? Like, these are editorial decisions I don't understand.
No,
why would you let them? Why would you let them skip that? Why would you, as the editor, be like, "Oh yeah, no, you can jump straight to them already broken up"? There's no narrative oomph there.
The thing is, you could get good meaty storytelling out of it, like Grant Morrison's new X-Men. Like, one of the big plots is their relationship falling apart, and it happens over several issues.
X-Men, especially like when it's the adjectiveless book like this, it's supposed to be a soap opera. And you're never going to put on a soap opera that's going to skip the juicy part.
Exactly. We need them like fighting and like see, and I don't even like them, and I'm mad about this. It's like you and Rogan Gambit.
I was just going to say this is paralleling my Rogan Gambit situation where I have to defend. I know Keegan. He's just a little guy. He's just a little guy.
He's just a little guy. He's a scamp.
Give me a sandwich here. Say something nice before I have to dive into Miss Marvel. What did you like, Keegan? What did you love about this issue?
I liked that I was right about Mother Righteous. And I thought that Magic dealing with the Sentinel was really cool.
I like that too.
Yeah.
Like, that was badass.
I kind of feel like I'm turning into those jerks that complain about The Last Jedi and like if she can just dimension slice them up, doesn't it really not matter how many of them are? That just seems like a universal. She can, or is it a power output thing?
Would it be like dimension slice them up like one at a time? So if there's like 12, if there's 12 of them and one of her, like.
Yeah, like I think that's part of it. Also, it did look like it took quite a toll on her to do it. So it's not.
Yeah, I guess I'm not familiar enough with like her power limitations. I guess I'm not sure. I know like her portal count she can do before she gets tired. I guess so. That's fair. That is a totally fair assumption. I guess that was probably the coolest part of the fight scene. Forge attempting to just hack Tony's tech and then get flicked away was probably the funniest. I got a good chuckle out of him.
I like that a lot of things happen in this issue. Like. You have everything going on at the beginning with Righteous. You have the team fighting the Sentinel. You find out what's going on with Orcus a little bit, and then you do get the Miss Marvel discussion.
It was incredibly well paced, absolutely, because it did all those things, but it never felt rushed or truncated. It felt like it accomplished all of those things and said what it needed to say about them too.
Well,
other than Scott and Jean.
Well, no, I actually have some of the issues with the conversation at the end.
Oh, yes. Okay, we can go there. We can finally talk about Scott and Emma's conversation, and if there's anything to say about the Kingpin one. I liked Emma's characterization here. I thought her kind of putting both Kingpin in his place and then kind of dressing Scott down too was really enjoyable.
I liked that up until they started talking about Miss Marvel, because it just seemed the way she was telling him was so flippant, which felt a little bit out of character for her. Like, I was a little annoyed at him about being a whore, but like I feel like he would have more emotional intelligence in the scene of like, oh yeah, your childhood friend is dead in a very traumatic way, just so you know. But also Scott's reaction was just kind of no. So everyone just kind of
Scott was off-putting as hell in that scene. Definitely super off-putting.
It didn't hit the emotional points for me. Like, so it should have held more weight but it would just kind of be like, oh, by the way, Miss Marvel died. Let's fix it.
See, I thought all of the like emotion was sucked out by the heavy-handed. Well, that changes the calculus, doesn't it? And so they wanted to be cryptic, but not just outright say like, this is like we're gonna have to give her an X gene somehow or something, like, because that's where they're going. This is exactly what we've been talking about since the Miss Marvel announcement happened, that they're shoehorning a way to turn her into her MCU character, and it's just so disingenuous and forced and charmless that it just
everything about her situation is just bad. She didn't even die in her own book.
Yeah,
her death is not about her.
She dies in John Romita Jr. art.
that is a shame.
Well, now, not to double back too hard, but you were talking about Emma, and a properly written Emma, the only time she has true empathy is about teenagers, and
Yeah.
like maybe just her teenager. So maybe she could be a little more callous because like Kamala wasn't one of hers. But you're right; it doesn't feel right for her to be that flippant about the death of a teenage hero. If it was a former lover of Scott's, I feel like that her reaction here would have made more sense if it was.
Yeah, but it was like one of Scott's besties
Like,
as a kid. Like him and they had such a cute like dynamic and friendship going on. Like the scene with where the champions were in trouble and he shows up because what's the champion? Oh, my heart. Anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, she just seemed very flippant and she does care about the children.
it hadn't jumped out at me because I was too focused on
Mhm.
Scott's dialogue in that scene. But now that you bring it up, definitely should have had more empathy there from Emma. But
Yeah, and Scott just felt weird that whole scene.
well, and some of it was the art because it did. It
Yeah.
felt like what is the movie, Keegan, that's always shown on Adult Swim as like an example of really terrible acting, and it's like The Room, right? Isn't that it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It felt like the guy from just the over dramatic. No, just the art put it over the top for me for sure.
A 6 or a 7 out of 10. Like it kind of the end kind of knocks it off a little bit just because it annoys me. Also, the Gene and Scott breakup, but like the other parts were really good.
It was kind of that number sounds pretty fair because the general fight scene was. I always enjoy Dugan's fight scenes. Like he gets kind of sci-fi gimmicky, having the whole team beat each other up very well, and then I really enjoy the opening. Just and maybe that's the Mother Righteous fan in me, but seeing her interact with Dr. Stasis was really cool. And then a lot of meh to the rest of it, and really I had major issues with the epilogue. And that might not be Duggan's fault. That might be pure editorial because it really feels like that's a Disney edict coming down. But
I feel like if you took the Miss Marvel out of the conversation in the epilogue and like you just saw Emma, kind of put Kingpin in his place, and then if she had called Scott there for some other reason and he showed up like, hey baby, and then she was like, you absolute fool, you are a buffoon, like that would have been great.
yeah.
But instead, the Miss Marvel of it all kind of cheapened both of those interactions.
Yeah.
That's
Which I am grateful for the growth on Emma's part that she's not like immediately jumping Scott's bones during the mess of it. And she's like, you idiot.
I'm a little confused on the polycule timing because was it the first Hellfire or the second Hellfire that totally implied that they were still at least like they were still heavily flirting and kind of implied they might have still been hooking up?
I think it was the second one because it was in Immortal where Emma was talking about how Scott doesn't like that she sleeps in her diamond form. And she said that in present tense.
So it would have been the recent one, you're right. So that would have been last year, so it would have been the second gala, yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the polycule's been dropped because even the Wolverine and Jean's, Percy's the only one writing that. So
yeah. Well, and even when he writes it, it's super inconsistent because he'd written where it was kind of she had cut Logan off, but then it was kind of implied that they were still hooking up in a later issue, and so
Well, and I had always kind of read it as he was cheating on the polycule with Emma.
I think that's true. I think it was like not necessarily Jean was in, or it was never explicitly implied.
Yeah, it was not an agreed upon.
Yeah, I don't really know what was going on there. It's been like heavily hinted at least Scott and Emma. It's not shown outright like Jean and Logan, but seen in the first like team of X-Men where Scott dies and there's that really like intimate scene of them in the resurrection room. That's probably like one of the softest scenes I've seen in comics in a long time. Like there's no platonic reading of that scene. I'm sorry, there's just
no, I agree. It's always hinted at but never shown. Any final thoughts on the book, Shea, that you want to throw in before we
we'll see what happens with Fall of X.
I still say Fall of X EX is where they're headed because it really seems like they're just shattering every relationship they've got. Well,
Watch
thank
out,
you.
Charlin and Sync.
Yeah. Thank you for jumping on. I know it was kind of short notice, and this has been a really fun way to get everyone in here. And we will chat soon, and we'll get you on for a full episode in the next. Well, I just found out today our twins are coming on the 20th, so maybe not super soon, but relatively soon. We'll get
You
on.
got a lot of exciting things going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But thanks again, Shay. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Shay.
And to talk about Bishop War College, number 5, our honorary third host, everybody's favorite pickhead, the one and only, our broken moderator over on Discord, Owain the Broken Record.
I'm back again. I might as well live here at this point.
Back again. All right. How have you been? It is 4 a.m. your time, and you're still jumping on with us, like always. Appreciate it.
3 minutes past 4 in the morning, and I am exhausted. But
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here.
You know what? We get to talk about a very energetic book, so it'll work out. But we've been asking everybody before we dig into the comic book a very important question.
Mhm.
You live in the Marvel Universe, or you're just visiting the Marvel Universe. Summer vacation rolls around. Beach vibes out the ass. Where are you headed?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. Like it's gonna be basic, but I don't think you could beat visiting Krakoa. Like it's a tropical island. Like that's pretty vacation-y.
Like, I'm a happily married man. I am like a week and a half away from being a father of 3. But if I was single, there's nowhere better to be single and mingle than the Green Lagoon. Just think about the pickups you could get.
I want to go on vacation to the bar with no name. No, I will not be explaining.
I like to keep my wallet and my head on my vacation, so there's no way I'm going there.
You just got to be a smooth enough talker to make it work.
Exactly.
Sir, you have filmed over 40 episodes of the show with me. You know I am not a smooth talker.
Yeah, I know, but like, I can see Owen making it work. I feel like I could make it work. I mean, I chose MCU nowhere, so
Yeah. You guys could survive.
I'd certainly try.
Bishop, War College number 5, written by Jay Holtham, drawn by Sean Damian Hill. Opens with Bishop furious that time has been frozen and then reset again. He finally grabs Tempo by the wrist and insists, "You stop it! You stop messing with time!" She insists she needs to save some version of her dad, and Bishop asks, where is this world's Heather? Apparently she's at home sleeping soundly. Bishop implores that they can't stay in this world and insists that they're the ones who are bringing all this conflict. It's because they're here that the world is all topsy-turvy. He finally acquiesces and takes them home. Back on Earth 616, the War College kids are face-to-face with the Fenris twins. But with a flash of light, Bishop and Tempo are back. They all brawl with the Fenris twins tossed in the newly opened pit before Wrong Slide seals it closed again. Magic and Danny show up to kind of just stroll out with everyone. Like, seriously, I have a real beef with the fact that she teleports in, is like, anyone need help? Oh, we're too late to help. And then makes them climb back out that fucking cave. Wrong. Bishop announces he'll give them all their grades tomorrow. Meanwhile, in the pit, the Fenris twins realize that they're trapped with Mr. Sinister, who is pretty pissed at being trapped with a pair of Nazis. Feilong and Moira talk about whether they all failed, and in a data page, Moira talks about what they found on that mission. Sabretooth is free. Blightswill works, and they now have a mapping of the island's weaknesses. We then cut back to Earth 63 and see their Bishop is training with his world's magic, finally accepting that he needs to fight for what he believes in. Our Bishop announces to the crew that they all passed, and a data page reveals the actual scores and notes to be disseminated to all the other war captains. And finally, we see him with the next group of college students, and he invites them to come get some. I have one positive. I might have more than one. I have one truly positive. I I count that as confirmation the armor's on the team this year. So on the data page where he gives his scores, he says, and she was skipped twice for the X-Men, and I'll make sure that doesn't happen this time. Which I guess canonizes the actual vote. Because we didn't see her nominated in the galas. I don't know. I don't know how that actually works. It was a meta joke that totally, to me, they wouldn't have let Jay Holtham include if she wasn't making the team this year. So, armor for the X-Men.
Woo! I'm happy with that. Justice for Armor, finally.
Yeah, justice for armor at last.
All right. My first nitpick. Wouldn't Orcus already know that Sabretooth is free? They were the main villain of the Sabretooth book. Sabretooth and the Exiles was about them fighting and taking down, was it 3 separate Orcus bases? It makes no sense that they wouldn't already know.
Maybe like the attacking the Orcus bases sort of happens a little bit later than him having he's escaped, but he's not attacked them yet.
Yeah,
that's the only thing I can think of.
On the top of my head, I don't know the timing of the Sabretooth and the Exiles mini. I don't remember if it ever explicitly said when it took place in relation to other books. So that you might have just headcanoned it to a way that I'm not angry, but
I mean, I feel like it's either that or it's just that Orcus is such a large enough organization that they don't know about Sabretooth and all that yet.
That's fair. I could see Moira not knowing. And like we don't see the reaction to the email she sends, so it could be the sort of thing where he gets it and he's like, duh, I know, Graydon told me weeks ago, but that it's news to Moira. So I guess I can allow it. I really enjoyed that even Sinister hates Nazis. So
yeah.
So all of you people who are cool with the I'm not getting too into it, but the Nazis that you're cool with now make you worse than Sinister, because even Sinister won't hang out with a Nazi.
Based Mr. Sinister.
Yeah. Owen, do I have your permission to make that a shirt? Because
only if you send me one, but absolutely.
That might need to be a shirt.
Oh man.
The Earth 63 magic design.
Mm-hmm.
That gives me feels. There was activity when I got to that page. That was a cool design.
That was really, I like that design a lot. Honestly, I think that was my favorite part of the entire mini, was just all of the different Earth 63 designs that we got to see.
Oh, Earth 63 is a great concept. They had some really cool designs. I hope at some point I get a book that might actually explore those characters.
I still don't like their version of Beast. I find him scary.
Would you say that he looks beastly?
I would say a lot more than that, Keegan, I'll be honest.
I will say we got what was supposed to be a scary beast in X-Force a couple days ago, and I would much rather run into that beast in like an open field that wants to fight me than the beast from 63. 63, definitely intimidating. But you know what? All the women are hotter on 63. Like Jean looks amazing. Scott looks pretty badass.
Yeah. I genuinely think the only one I have any sort of like
Negative
problem
reaction
with is Beast.
That's fair. I kind of, and this isn't like a slam on Sean Damian Hill, but I think I would actually like to see more time spent there, and I want to see different artists' interpretations of those character designs. Like, I feel like if we got or maybe even just a different colors, like I feel like if we got like a flatter color, something that made it feel more modern, because this felt like, even though it took place on an Earth that had Krakoa, it all felt like it was meant to evoke like the 90s costumes and the more iconic costumes. And I think it would be really interesting to see a more modern style of art cover those same character designs and see what it would look like.
I think that's a fair point.
So,
But also, I just think it'd be cool to spend more time with them.
you've nitpicked, Rod, but what exactly did you think of this series as a whole?
I think looking at it broadly, now that we've gotten the whole thing, and this mirrors a lot of what I've said as we got it in pieces. The ideas that propelled them to create this series, the premises, each could have sustained a book that I would enjoy. Like, I feel like a story about a bunch of the younger kids getting trapped in the caves underneath Krakoa while trying to stop the Fenris twins from getting into the pit, or Bishop and Tempo getting trapped in Earth 63 and exploring what it means to find a world with less conflict and like some racial unity that they don't have, and have Bishop end up having guilt about feeling like he brought conflict to them to an extent. All that totally could have been a series I really enjoyed. By cramming them both into the same book and really kind of spending not enough time with either, and not really developing or earning a lot of the plot beats. You probably haven't had a chance to listen to it yet because of the way we're releasing these episodes daily. I think it's the episode that aired yesterday that Keegan and I talked about issue 4, but like the reveal that Tempo was like disguising herself as the Heather of that planet felt super unearned, because literally the only reference we'd gotten to the Earth 63 Tempo was a single line of no, Tempo's a human on our world, and Bishop doing like the Rock eyebrow thing, like, huh? and then they just moved on from it. So I don't think I hate this book, but I very much was frustrated every issue in that I wanted more, and not in the way of like, ooh, that was so good, I wanted more, but like oh god, I wish there was more so that I could actually consume this. I feel like the story just rolls right over you because it moves so quickly to hit like prescribed beats.
Fair enough.
Keegan?
And I was honestly kind of in the same position. I was like, I wish they would have picked one or the other of these plot lines to focus on and really made that one sing, rather than kind of half and half on each one.
So when we talked, was it issue 2 you were on last, or was it issue 3?
Yes.
It was a while ago. And you were saying it was your favorite at the time.
Yes, I did say that.
Where did you land at the end?
So I really, really liked issue 1 and issue 2, and then as I was reading issue 3 and 4, I suddenly stopped sharing my opinions on it. And there was a bit of a reason for that, because I suddenly just, like, I found a lot of the issues with it that you've brought up. Like, we were 3 issues in, and I felt like we'd had no real sort of development for either story.
Yeah.
And we were halfway through, and I wanted to find out more about Earth 63, and then we weren't on it anymore. And then I wanted to find out some more about the students and what they're up to. And then that's sorted too. And it's all wrapped up in a neat little bow in a tiny, tiny 5-issue story.
Yeah.
Keegan, you look like you have a...
I think the way you explain that is exactly right, because I felt like each time I was starting to get invested in like a scene, we would switch to the other story.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of feel like issue 5 took that to the highest extreme
Hmm.
of none of the conflicts needed any actual resolution. It was just like we should just go home, and her kind of just being like, okay, fine, we'll go home. And then they get there and they're like, oh, we should really beat these guys up. And then just okay, toss them in. All right, they're in the pit now.
So
Like it just felt like the resolution was rushed even more than the book had been rushed so far. Like I don't know. Maybe I'm exaggerating it, but that's what it felt like to me. Was all they needed to do was come up with we should solve this problem. Okay, let's solve the problem.
I think this book would have been exactly the same if tempo hadn't been in it.
Mm-hmm.
Tempo,
Absolutely.
nothing for the story, which is a shame because I really like tempo.
Yeah. Had you been a gadget that moved him between both worlds, so that you didn't have to have a contrived like motivation for her, have one less piece of the puzzle, and have it just be like he sat on the Gibby widget. Oh, well, we're not in England, so it wouldn't have that ridiculous of a name, but
Wow. but that is a good point because like even with them like coming back to Earth 616, it felt way too easy. Like they're just like, oh, are we good? Like you got everything? All right, let's go. And then suddenly they're home. I mean, it was said that it was something to do with like that universe's blight swill or whatever, but like it just felt too easy. Like we just happened to be standing next to the magical MacGuffin that gets us home. Like I don't know.
She just needed to believe.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't get it, guys.
It just here's the thing. What's to get?
Well, it's true, and that's the problem with all of these. Again, I don't know how caught up you are, Owen, because we literally are dropping 7 episodes in a week as the most like self-entitled thing ever. Thinking people are going to listen to them all, but we have been talking a ton about how 2023 for us has been like an X-Men dichotomy. That you've had the 3 main books have all been great because they were sinister and like just so much going on, and then everything else has felt like filler pretty much, including these minis that some of them had really cool premises, but they just feel like they're treading water. And this is another one. This is the first one to finish, I think. Nothing really changed from issue 1 to issue 5. Like nothing in the grand scheme got progressed by this. Nothing's getting progressed over in Captain Britain. Nothing's getting progressed in X-23, which is a flashback, but that's another one of these minis. They just all feel like they are pure water treading.
That, you know what, though? That's a good point you make, that like nothing really changed from beginning to end. This felt like an episode of a cartoon, right?
Yeah.
In 30 minutes we're done, problem solved, nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Like even the implied arc Bishop would go on where he learned something about being a better teacher. I don't know if this was the intended effect, but him immediately having the next crew like, all right, come fight me. That to me implied he learned nothing from the experience, that he still thinks of teaching as just, we all need to slap the shit out of each other.
I'm not teaching a class, I'm training an army.
Right. But like you said, issue 1 really felt like it was setting up or like it felt like it had the potential to take us down a path of selling hard his arc and like Bishop learning to be a different type of leader. And I guess giving them all A's was somewhat growth, but then he does seem like he's just treating the next crew exactly the same, is the way I read it, at least. I don't know.
He didn't even give them all A's. Some of them got B's.
That's true. I did think that was funny that in person he tells them all, oh yeah, y'all did great, y'all passed. And he goes back, he's like, they were all great except for that asshole who got a B.
Well, a B is still passing.
A B is definitely still passing, but it's less enthusiastic.
A B is still a great grade.
Not to Bishop.
And I feel like a B becomes a passive-aggressive, like, fuck you when it's got 0, like, stakes to it. The grades, in person he tells you, oh yeah, you did great. I'm gonna make sure there's a paper trail saying you're less great than your peers, even though you're never gonna see it, just so that I can be sure to vent to the other war captains that you're slightly less awesome.
I mean, you were great, but Arma's great, so she's getting on the X-Men.
Yeah. And if that doesn't happen, you know what? You know what, Keegan? For the second time in this week, if Armor is somehow not on the X-Men this year, I'm doing the one chip challenge.
Woo! You know what? You can go ahead. I'm not gonna double up on that one just because I feel like editorial might make a mistake. The Magneto one, that one I feel safer with. This one, I don't know about that.
That's fair. I'll be honest, I kind of just also want to do it because I think I can handle it.
I've been tried to convince to do it before. I'm not sure.
I'm gonna tempt the fates. But also, I really do genuinely think that was what was implied there. And if it's not, then kudos on Jay Holtham for kind of putting the fire to Marvel on the topic. If he snuck that in somehow.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That would be cool.
All right. Unless Keegan has any other final thoughts, I will give you the last word. Owen, do you have anything else you want to say on War College?
Make better minis, please.
That
Uncanny
Shark Week 2023 subtitle: Make better minis, please.
Please.
No, because if I put that in a logo, someone's going to misinterpret it as a MAGA thing. So no.
That's fair. I'm just saying, me personally, that is my subtitle for Shark Girl Week 2023.
Uncanny Spider-Man. That's going to be the one. That's going to be a great mini.
God, I hope so.
Go get some sleep, my friend.
Oh, I will.
To talk Immortal X-Men 12, we're bringing in a regular over on the Discord, but a first appearance here on the podcast. I want to introduce everybody to Hellfire Trading Company on TikTok. Meg, how's it going?
Hi. I'm excited to be here.
We're so excited to finally have you. I feel like I talk to you almost daily through the magic of Discord, but you're finally on the...
Absolutely the lifeblood of our Discord server.
Aw, thanks. It's because I'm 20 and have nothing better to do.
I remember those days. I'd say, well, counting 10 days till I have 3 kids suddenly.
Yeah.
Tell us about yourself or your X-Men journey.
Okay, well, I'm probably like the newest out of all your guests. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure, but I only started collecting physicals in 2021. No, 2022, last year, with Hellfire Gala #1, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And I backread, I did New X-Men, and that's my favorite run still. And then I went to Hoxpox, and I've kind of been doing Claremont and like a bunch of other stuff in between. But now I'm all caught up with Krakoa.
Oh, that is jumping eras. Wow, you're going back and forth. That's a cool way to get the whole breadth of what's going on, though.
Yeah, it's kind of like somebody shows up. I'm like, who's this? I need to know everything about them, and then I'll read like all their appearances.
Okay, so if we're coming up on your 1-year anniversary of physical issues, how long had you been reading before that?
Literally not long, like a few months before I started. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I read a few of my dad's back issues that he has because he was a collector in the 90s.
So I remember you saying your dad had read. Yeah. And then did you say something on the Discord about you thought the announcement of them getting the Transformers and G.I. Joe back at Image might bring your dad back into reading? Yeah. Was he a big fan of those 2 properties?
So he currently collects G.I. Joes. He has like 2 display cases of them, and it's pretty awesome. He's the reason I have my Legends figures because he's a Pulse member. But
I wish my dad was half as cool as your dad.
I'll send pics in the Discord, which is why everyone should totally join.
Yes.
Oh, fitting that ad in early. Best guest ever. All right, before we dive into the book, we are going to ask everybody this. If you were in the Marvel Universe, where would you go for your summer vacation?
Oh boy, that's hard. Why would you do that to me? Well,
I ran out of Capri Sun, so.
Because I'm not mutant, so I don't know if that's on the table. But
I mean, you could always go Kingpin rules and just marry a mutant.
That's so true. But I already have someone in mind, and they're also not immune. So, but they're like all about free love, right? Emma can hook me up.
Yeah, join a polycule. We know they're down with them.
I'm about to add myself to the rhombus and make it a pentagon.
There you go.
So as Krakoa's off the table, did you have a different answer, or you think you'd still just find a way to get to Krakoa?
I don't know. Maybe like, because like there's places I want to go in real life that I haven't even been, and I feel like they're cooler in the Marvel universe. Like
That's
Paris.
a good point.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's fair.
I mean, if you're getting a free vacation anyways, why not kill two birds with one stone? Go to the Marvel version of
So
a place
true.
you already wanted to go. I like it. That is a great answer. All right, ready to talk Immortal X-Men?
Absolutely.
Written by Kieran Gillen, drawn by Lucas Werneck. It opens with a data page of the latest page of the Scrivener story, scripting Colossus's life, as he schemes with Shaw. At the Quiet Council meeting, Shaw calls for a closed session where he moves to fill Mr. Sinister's vacant seat, presumably from the list of motions Mother Righteous gave him towards the end of last issue. To Kate's surprise, Colossus agrees, and because he is Storm's proxy and she is Nightcrawler's proxy, he has 3 votes. Shaw nominates Selene, who was last seen in issue 2 where, she was killed. Turns out there's more than one path to resurrection. Destiny stops them short of a vote and accuses Shaw of working for Orcus. Rasputin 4 is able to scan his mind to verify that he's not, which confuses Destiny and leads to Peter also moving to permanently move Kurt's proxy vote from Storm to him. Kate is appalled at him selling out the council for an extra vote, and he in turn accuses her of being closer to Emma than him now and losing her moral compass along the way. Finally, he moves to have the full details of the Sinister timeline released to the general public. Meanwhile, the 4 Council and Sin members are waiting with hope, impatiently deciding to take a peek at what's happening psychically. She runs out of the room, but is met by Rasputin, who guards the chamber, and we see she's under Mother Righteous's influence, and they start to fight. Emma decides it isn't breaking the rules to read Hope's mind, and tries to discover what she's learned, and is horrified. She announces she'll put Colossus to sleep, but Xavier stops her, and at the last second, Hope calls out to Exodus for help, and he scrambles for a plan and decides to bring Storm home. Colossus apparently plays into the Chronicler's weaknesses and buys a few moments with drama. He tells Kate Kitty would understand. Do you? Storm arrives and shuts the vote down for now. Mystique confronts Destiny, who sees Mystique killing her in the future. Mystique plays the tape of Destiny's memo from the Sinister timeline that Mother Righteous left her, and Destiny is shocked by the words of her future self. They embrace, with Mystique assuring her that she'd never kill her, until Mother Righteous influences her to go ahead and do it. Mystique stabs her through the heart before screaming in horror while she cradles Destiny's body. Upon resurrection, Shaw appears in Arbor Magna to point out, now you're compromised too, Destiny, and also should lose her vote per the new precedent. This leads back to another Quiet Council meeting where this time the vote to make public the Sins of Sinister timeline wins by a vote of 4 for it, 3 against, and 5 forced to abstain. Storm asks Peter why, and Colossus tries his hardest to hint at his sad fate, telling her he isn't her pawn, with heaving emphasis on the word your. It seems she doesn't catch on.
Starting off, I'm really glad Selene is back. I'm not a fan of who she's with, but I'm really, really glad she's back. I missed her a lot. I mean, my username is Hellfire Django.
I was shocked. I was shocked they brought her back. I wasn't expecting it. I know they kind of spoiled it with the preview page. So we found out a couple days ahead, but I love it.
I missed her so much. She's such an agent of chaos on Krakoa, and we need more of that. I'm glad she's on the council too. That her pitch went through. I'm just not a fan of where it's going. I have so many feelings. I'm also still very anti-Shaw on the council, only because of what happened in Marauders. I feel like Lourdes should have gotten his seat if she got all his power. They dropped the ball there.
I feel like that's been completely... Yeah. That was an abandoned plot for sure, wasn't it?
Like 100%, because now he's calling Selene my queen, which is totally could be like an old days thing, but it's Lourdes.
You're right. There was a definite ball drop there. Speaking of ball drops, an in-universe ball drop. Why did Kurt not leave his phone number with somebody? I feel like them being able to just vote around his proxy vote and no one bothers to be like, I'm going to give him a ring and let him know.
Well, yeah, I choose to believe it as like Kurt pulled a Luke Skywalker and has like cut himself off from, you know, the telekinetic X-Force kind of thing. Not
Sure.
the organization X-Force, but my combination of the Force and X-Men. And so like he just can't be reached because he's like, nah.
I could see that. I'm sure that's it. I just feel like
Fair.
I would have at least left like a burner number with one person, just like, okay, if you really need me, guys, call me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, maybe the person you like gave your vote to, maybe.
yeah, oh yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
That would make sense.
You know what though? That would eliminate the drama. And what is X-Men without drama? So
Very true. I'm also absolutely devastated that they decided to have that Mystique and Destiny moment in June. Like they couldn't wait till next month.
Right? During
Yeah.
Pride Month?
Painful.
I like to think that it's abstracted enough when Kieran Gillen sits down to write the issue, like for the artist to get it in time. He's probably writing it in like March. Doesn't really even put together in his
Oh,
head as he's
totally,
putting the scene
totally. Just
together that it's
teasing.
coming out in June. But I get
Absolutely.
absolutely.
That was emotionally damaging. But man,
I
everyone
thought
doubting
the scene was
Destiny.
ending with the hug. I wasn't expecting the immediate stab too. It was a gut punch for me.
Yeah, she really only got control of her for that brief moment because she snapped right out of it. Even
And
as she's stabbing her, she looks like appalled.
it's an interesting portrayal of Mother Righteous's control of people because it seems like she has put a lot of effort to exert her influence. We saw for so long her kind of collecting her influence through all the thank yous. But I think these are this issue had the two really good examples of her actually using that influence, and it seems like it takes a lot of exertion and a lot of control. And the Indecence of Sinister, she had made the comment to Vox Ignis. I was gonna say the good Ghost Rider, but yeah, Vox Ignis, that she had a lot of control over him because she had many thank yous from him. So I think we're starting to see more limits on her power. That when she's only received a few thank yous, apparently, it takes a lot more effort for her. And like you said, Meg, a very short window of control. That it was like a mere moment. It was enough time for her to do the stabbing, and then you could see it was immediate regret and horror. A
Also
lot of
opened
emotion.
the door of total fear for me because at the end of Dominion, Storm thanked her on behalf of all mutants. So what does that mean in the context of her powers? Does that mean just Storm because Storm's the one who said it, or like does that behalf count? Like, yikes.
Yeah, that's a good point. It does
I feel
does
like
it
they're
can the
leaning.
person only control their own thank you? And
Right.
I think that's an interesting concept to explore, and I think you might be right.
Yeah. If they're leaning into like the very fey origin of that kind of power, I think the behalf absolutely counts. So,
Well, and especially because Storm was in a position to have that authority. Like
right.
I couldn't just say like, "Oh, thanks on Keegan's behalf," and Keegan has to accept it. But the people of Krakoa have given Storm that authority in a sense, so I could totally see her having the power to think on their behalf.
Yeah, frightening to say the least.
All right, all right, all right. I have to get into the Percy of it, and
I
I'm
was
going to
gonna
do it
ask
in as
the same
nice
question.
in
I
as
was gonna ask-
nicely of a way as I can ask it, without pointing a finger at the guy. But so X Force 40, which just came out, really heavily implied Colossus is completely unaware he's under control because when they go to the far future, he's disoriented because he's got control of his own motives, but he doesn't really understand why. He doesn't understand what's different, what's wrong. But this seems to imply that he's is aware because of his emphasis on like his efforts to subtly resist or is the main theme of this issue. And those don't necessarily have to contradict each other. Like I could think of a few ways that those things could coexist. That while he's influenced, he knows, and he loses that knowledge when he no longer is influenced, maybe, or maybe the chronicler is writing his resistance here. Like it's another instance of the chronicler pushing back on Mikhail, maybe. I don't know, but the fact that those came out 2 weeks apart and so directly contradicted each other has me very confused.
Mhm.
I'm also wondering if maybe this is like a time where Pyotr disagrees so strongly with what he's being chosen to do that he becomes aware in a
Like
way.
it's like it's
Like he's like, wait, wait,
yeah.
wait, 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 wait. No, 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 no.
It's how much willpower he's pushing back with.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Because it
That-
could
yeah.
have been a whole, like, kind of in a haze thing. And then now he's like, oh, I don't want this at all. Like, I want the opposite of this so hard.
I mean, it could be that, and that could be kind of a parallel with Mother Righteous's powers, right? It has to do with how strong-willed the target is and how against their natural choice would be as well.
Yeah. It makes me a little bummed to think that that story's not going to play out under Kieran Gillen's hand, because this is the most interesting Colossus's plot has been. It's been in this issue right here. This was great. I loved watching him resist it and things, but I have a feeling because we're jumping with each issue focuses on a different character, that it's not going to play out here, and it's not going to play out in Immortal. It's going to play out over in X-Force, which is a little disappointing.
Not next week. Next month is Doug, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's Doug and then Krakoa itself, right? Or is it the other way around?
I
I think
you're right.
13 is Doug and 14 is Krakoa itself, I'm pretty sure. And then I can't wait for a couple weeks. We're going to find out where they go with 15, because they're going to have to come up with a different.
Well, maybe Celine, since she's now a new addition.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, honestly, we might get a just entire season 2 at some point with like a new council or something.
We figure it's the makeup of the council is probably going to shift very quickly in the near future. Between the threads of all the different books we're talking this week, there are a lot of dominoes that could fall very quickly to end current makeup of the council.
I'm really rooting for a Celine issue and maybe a Rasputin 4 issue, because it seems to be like she's their sentry out there.
I would love a Rasputin 4 issue, because I love her so much already.
I felt so bad that she's already under Mother Righteous. Like, she just gets out from under Sinister's thumb, and she's immediately
no
under
joy.
Mother Righteous's thumb.
Yeah.
Not a single win.
It needs a happy ending. We need a happy Rasputin 4 like ending whenever this Mother Righteous plot ends. Let her live out her life as a true member of the mutants in this time period.
And also the art this issue just was amazing. Warnick always
Warnick
kills it.
carries. He is so good in everything he draws. I can't believe the stuff he pulls off.
It's amazing.
Exodus is quick thinking, kind of redeems him a little. I know it didn't end up making a difference, but he solved the problem that Emma and Hope and no one else was able to. He had just brainstorm in with such a quick response there. I loved it.
Mm-hmm. No, that was a really clutch move.
And hopefully we'll have Hope back off a little now. Maybe she really does forgive him a little, because
hopefully.
I was gonna make the same comment.
I was also
I think it's sad that as the only dad in the room, I'm the only one that didn't come up with that joke.
Yeah, well,
been outdadded, outfathered.
I do love also just the continuous references to like he is in a Russian novel, so he can feel no joy. Like I thought that was just really clever throughout.
It was great. Kate, I thought that this did a really good job of not just portraying her as desperate, but kind of a boiling desperation, as it was becoming more clear to her that she was literally the only hero left with a vote, that it was her against the world, and then eventually Storm comes back. But she was the only heroic character with a vote, and like both the way Gillen wrote her dialogue, but Wernick drew the desperation on her face so well that it was just great.
I commend her for the self-control when Piotr said Kitty would have understood. Do you? Because man,
for all the other feuds that went to blows in this issue, it was surprising that didn't come to blows, that she didn't just strike him down there.
Also, yeah, you're totally right, because even the art in that panel when he says "Do you," and you could just see it on her, it's almost like just like exasperation. Like, what do I do? What now?
Yeah.
I don't like where this is going. I mean, I love it, but I don't.
Right? It's like the drama hurts, but it hurts so good.
It hurts so good. It's too well done to be mad at.
But I think what makes it hurt is that we're heading into a story called Fall of X. So like the happy ending isn't anytime soon. That we're gonna have to make it through that much more trauma. That we haven't actually started the trauma yet. We're still in the before the fall era. So like this is all building to the real sadness. So the fact that we're already feeling all this pain is a little scary.
Yeah. Now,
It's like prep.
yeah, it's preparing. What do you guys think on this plan, right? This releasing the Sins of Sinister timeline to the public.
I think it's really dumb, even in universe. I do think it's kind of stupid, but I trust him, so I'm willing to see where he goes with this. But I don't think it makes sense for them to
It
do.
doesn't make sense to me how that is either Mother Righteous's goal or Mikhail's goal. Like that feels like an Orcus goal. Like I could see how Orcus could be influencing, hey, we should reveal that they fucked up another future. That makes sense to me. But I do agree, and I assume we're gonna get that motivation at some point. But
well, did Mother Righteous not just take a controlling interest in Orcus?
That's why I'm wondering, did it happen before or after?
That's true. That's true.
Like,
All of these issues this week are all kind of they don't have clear indications what order they're taking place. So it could be that she's already in control of Orcus, but we still don't know her motive for that either.
Right. But I mean,
it doesn't.
We don't know a lot of things about her, to be fair.
Yeah,
that's true. That is
but
very
it
true.
being a more Orcus sounding plot, that
You're
doesn't
right.
make it not a Mother Righteous thing to me. I do think it's interesting though, because it does feel like an Orcus plot, but I can see the in-universe, like, it's the right thing to do explanation as well. Because it's like, yeah, we have to be responsible and own up to the mistakes that we made, even though they didn't stay. Hiding it is not the right thing to do. I can understand that logic.
I can see that. I do think it kind of stretches incredulity that I think I'm hoping that the Storm walking away as if she didn't catch on is a fake out, and that Storm did catch the message Peter was trying to send, because you'd think
You're being so dirty.
she'd see that there was no way that he would really think that's the right move. Like she has to see through it, right? Because he doesn't really have an argument for it beyond it's the right thing to do. It'll thug over every mutant alive. That's not a Colossus style move. So hopefully the combination of the ridiculousness of his plan paired with that comment, Storm did catch on. She has kind of been the main character of a lot lately, so I don't know that that's the route this story is going, is having her be the one to resolve his story.
It could also be them stressing how like spread thin she is, that she can't even realize that Piotr is going through that. Like she's just like, well, that's what he wants. I don't know how we got here, but which would be unfortunate.
It makes it especially sad
it
when he just called her out on it last issue too. He
exactly.
called her out on, hey, you spread yourself too thin. Yeah.
We might even get an answer about it this upcoming week, though.
That's true, because we have Red this week.
We have Red this week, so it obviously won't be the focus of the whole issue, what with the White Sword and Ironfire and all that, but we might get something.
I do feel like since the Sinister ended, they've been, I know it's only been one issue of Red and 2 issues of Immortal, but it feels like they're all more tightly knit. Like I don't know if that's just to bridge us to Fall or not, but I'm enjoying that aspect, that they don't seem like separate narratives at this point. It seems like Al and Kieran are writing one larger narrative.
Yeah, it's really good. It's awesome. To see that level of collaboration.
It's making up for all those terrible minis that have not been doing it at all for me. But the main story is great, and that's what's most important.
Very true.
All right, Meg, this has been so great, and we have to get you in for a full episode. But before we go, do you have any final thoughts on the issue? And then do you want to plug your socials one last time?
Sure. I'm overall just glad Selena's back. That's my biggest joy, because
that is a fair
there is little joy in this issue. So glad Selena's back. hoping Storm figures things out or somebody figures things out. But it would be good to have Storm do it because she needs a win in the observance department.
Absolutely.
Rooting for her. But yeah, you gave my TikTok Hellfire Trading Company. My Twitter is Hellfire Trading Co. But there's no vowels in trading, so it's TRDNG. And then just Co. That's where you
Both
can
will be
find
in
me.
the show notes. If you can't like make that happen, it'll be in the show notes. You can just click it. But
Cool beans. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for coming on.
thank you for being here. I loved it. We're gonna have you back soon. I promise.
Awesome. I can't wait to come back.
And to talk X-Men Before the Fall, Mutants First Strike #1, we're going to welcome back Joe of X, now also a dad of X. Your daughter is less than a week old, right?
Fresh out the coop.
Freshly
Fresh out the
minted.
cooch. Daughter of X is here and making sure that I am fucking loony and without sleep. But I love her to death.
We have Owain we had on at 3 in the morning, and you are only about 10 o'clock your time, but I still think you may win the record for most exhausted as
I have not
newborn
shaved it
parent.
in a while. The grays are coming in. And this is how we're gonna do. This is the next few years of my life. And
I was going to ask, how have you been? But that probably summarizes it. So I'm going to hit you with the one question we're asking everyone. If you had a summer vacation anywhere in the Marvel Universe, where would Joe and Baby of X be vacationing?
oh, that's a different question. If I have to bring my daughter, it's a very different, because if it's just me, I'm going whoring in Madripoor, right? Like I'm cutting a dude. I'm doing all sorts of shit in Madrid. Drugs I've never even heard of.
You're telling me you're not going to take your precious week-old infant to Madripoor with you?
Only if I want to sell her. Like if I need to pay some bills, like, all right. No, I'll take the baby to Wakanda, right? Wakanda would be probably...
That's been a very
the
common
place.
answer.
Yeah, like...
Safety and...
Right. It's the least place you're likely to get blown up. It's Wakanda.
See, I want it just because I figure I get a cheap iPad there. Like, they're going to have, like, the cheapest version of the best tech, but...
It's true. If you want to be safe, you just go to, like, Toledo, Ohio, right? Like, 'cause nothing fucking happens there. You're like, ah!
I don't know. That takes us right to what we're talking about today, because Milford, New Hampshire sure feels a lot like Toledo, Ohio. I don't know that these little towns are that safe.
It's often called the Ohio of the Midwest, or the Ohio of New England.
All right. X-Men Before the Fall, Mutants First Strike, because they can't give us short titles, is written by Steve Orlando, drawn by Valentina Penty, opens with Milford, New Hampshire, struck by a giant aerial strike. Immediately, media coverage blames mutants, and apparently mutant DNA is on the scene to support it. Bishop asks the Quiet Council to let him lead a rescue attempt, and everyone but Shaw endorses a rescue mission. A large mutant team bringing Marauders, X-Corp, and heavy hitters like Storm, Cyclops, and Jean Grey, wearing those cool red and white costumes that before now I think we'd only seen in Orlando's X-Men Infinity story, so it was cool to see those. All show up. Up on the Orcus Bloom, Judas Traveler is monitoring rescue efforts and reveals that his fellow mutants saving the day is all part of his machinations. Tempo, Thea, and Cerebra, as the CSI team, are all able to confirm the mutant DNA on the scene is like fake mutant DNA. The Watchdogs, most recently seen in Marauders as well, attack in the name of defending humanity. While rescue efforts continue, that CSI team's able to reconstruct the source of the explosion, and it's a boy who was literally just made to be a bomb. Cyclops and the X-Corp hold off the Watchdogs. Jean is shocked to discover that they had no idea it's a false flag attack. She psychically has them chase their tails, so rescue efforts can be left alone. We end up with this like really sweet montage of the sheer scale of the mutants' rescue efforts and their ongoing relief, including ice cream, giving kids free ice cream, and possibly the biggest missed opportunity ever. Joe, I know you'll back me up here. That should have been soft serve. Her just squatting on the tables would have been so much better than ice cream.
Just her shitting into a waffle cone in front of a crowd of horrified children would
if
have.
If you want to restore faith in the mutants, no one is better than soft serve. And then insisting. So it looks like it's gonna be this heartwarming ending. The people in Milford are like pushing back on the media narrative and insisting they were helping. But of course, that has to crumble away, and we see that the Orcus narrative is bigger than any small town. We see the media ignoring, like, the mayor on the news getting told, like, no, you're wrong, it was the mutants. And the book ends with a very, very happy Judas Traveler.
I mean, look, okay, so soft serve, right? I just think it would be a bad public image when they're trying to rebuild their public image.
No, I agree, and it was cool to see Ice Cream because I feel like we haven't seen him in forever. I just wanted to give Joe shit because I know he's probably the most anti soft serve person we know.
Soft serve erasure for sure. But I'm okay with that. But no, maybe it was a missed opportunity to have a woman shitting into a waffle cone in front of a horrified 7-year-old. You know, like,
I feel like if
Sure,
they really
Milford and Madripoor.
they really
Like-
want us to buy this narrative, this Orcus narrative, that would have sold it probably.
right. I mean, she just like, sorry you lost your family, kid. You want some ice cream? Like, and then it's just that, like, it's just kicking the rolls you down. I like this book, and this is, again, I have really, really, really hated Steve Orlett, like wretched Marauders run. I thought that was garbage and hard to follow, and I really tried to like it. And this is like Orlando's greatest hits. This is him taking all of the toys he's built in the toy box, right? The X-Men Infinity with the outfits, right? The mutant first responder outfits are the red.
I
and
love
white.
that Red Cross vibe. That's so cool.
And then the Thunderbird references, both at the end when you have like Dr. Werewolf MD, that was like the evil like werewolf from X-Force, like from like way back in the 90s, right? Like, and all of the stuff he's done, and you have like the stupid like time primordial mutants. What was the name of that stupid place?
I had it and I ended up taking it out of my summary because I wanted it to be a short summary. But what were they called?
Right.
The far past.
Right, the fucking, like, which I was like, okay, because I wasn't realizing this is an Orlando book when I read it, so I'm like, I was looking forward to just thinking about all of those mutants and never thinking about them again. Like, that was all a collective, like, ether fever that the mutants had. Like, oh, like, we were just huffing paint in the back of the Marauder, and we had this whole dream about this whole thing, and that wasn't that crazy. But no, I really liked it though. This was a good book.
I enjoyed this a lot more than any of the Marauders issues, and I do think this is soft confirmation that all of these before the fall one-shots are really just epilogues to the books that are ending, which is fine. I can live with that.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed this issue as well. Me as a somewhat shamed Orlando defender for his work on Midnighter, this is more in line with what I expect out of him after falling in love with his Midnighter run. So that made me feel good. But I just loved seeing so many different mutants doing so many different things.
I'm thinking this might be like a record for the last few years. This has to be the most packed, like, cameo-filled issue we've gotten in a while. I don't remember a time we've had this many pop-ins. This was great.
Triage is the real surprise to see, because you never see Triage at all. You know, Elixir just had his lunch, right? Elixir ate his lunch and enjoyed it, and we never saw Triage ever again. And here he is, right? So that's a Bendis X-Men special that I really like, but I think that the narrative is so strong. And I had an interaction on Twitter that I think deserves mentioning. When you were like, oh, do you want to talk about this book? I'm like, I really wanted to talk about this interaction I had on Twitter with this idiot. Because these fucking mouth breathers, right? So, like, Screen Rant wrote this thing, like, the X-Men are evil, right? And it shows, like, the Immortal X-Men, like, the Quiet Council, like, Selene showing up and being like, haha, I love blood, and, you know, whatever, right? Like, Selene being awesome. And, like, they were like, you know, oh, the X-Men are evil the whole time. The Quiet Council's corrupt. And then it's like, these fucking chuckle fucks are like, I told you that X-Men were evil the whole time. This fucking Krakoa thing's going to end any minute. And it's like, then Orlando writes this book, which is all about having a bad faith takes and the, like, gullible people who really will buy into, like, the first bad faith take about these events, like, and it's this great meta commentary about that. and that came out the same day, and these idiots just totally fucking missed it, right? And it's great because the reality of the situation, the mutants help, right? The mutants are helping. The mutants are here to help. They do everything they can, right? They rebuild the whole town. They everything, and the media is still like Fox Newsing it. They're like, oh, mutants, look what they did. Like, despite, and it's such a good commentary because if you go on the ugly sides of Twitter, you still see those people who hate the Krakoan era, who only watch the '90s cartoon and want to bitch about it, and like they don't know the substance of the issues that they're talking about. And I think that's really, really fucking good commentary to happen on the same day Immortal came out. So,
Joe, you brought up Thunderbird. I really hope that this means we're going to get another one shot by Nyla Rose.
Yes,
Let's
I
get a
would love
second
it.
Nyla Rose one shot.
Because yeah, Nyla did such a good job with that first one. I'd love to see some more of that.
I would like to see other AEW wrestlers get a shot at doing various Marvel characters as good as Nyla Rose did. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I want to see, like, I don't know, let's say, let's do a solo, like MJF writes fucking Mr. Sinister. Or, you know, like,
You know who I know
who
has
would you
written
put
little
for the
pieces
AEW
in
roster?
Danhausen. I want to see Danhausen writing something in the X-Men mythos. I think he would rock it. He wrote like a short horror story last year that was in one of those anthologies that was really fun. So not like a Marvel anthology, but one of the like indie anthologies. But I think he's got the chops for it. We know CM Punk has written Marvel comics in the past, so
yeah,
I guess he's technically still an
He
AEW
fucking
star.
sucks.
They're building a show around his ass, so
Yeah, fuck that guy. Fuck that guy.
Man. God, who would I want? I don't know about how many of them are actually good writers or not, but I don't know.
yeah, I mean, I feel like you can have more faith in AEW. Like they're at least writing their own promos to an extent.
That is very true.
Malachi Black would probably write a really good, again, Halloween themed, but you know, something in the darker realm. That dude, he's built his stuff all around his knowledge of obscure mythologies and stuff. Like that would be good.
Excellent for Thor. I would like to see his wife, who's not an AEW wrestler, write a bunch of stuff because she's like a big weeb. So like she's got right like
cool.
Zelina Vega's a class weeb. You know.
WWE's loosening their strings too, so she'd probably be allowed to if she wanted to write something.
It's true. They have a deal with Twitch coming up that they can do Twitch again, which is, I guess. I'm not a big Twitch guy. Like I'm a little old and cranky for that. Like watching all the people play video games. Why would I want it? Like I'm a get off my lawn moment right there. I don't want to. So, but what else about this issue? I enjoy these damn mutants taking our jobs, watchdogs. Like, which is another pull for Orlando. Orlando is like, man, he's good at pulling like deep out of Marvel mythos, right?
Yeah,
like,
because this iteration of them was in one of his middle issues of Marauders, but they were originally like an old Captain America villain, right? Was where they were originated?
Yeah. And again, they're very much the South Park hillbillies that are like, they took our jobs, right? Like, but like in the Marvel, and I feel like that is, again, really, really, it's very prescient for the times we live in, obviously, right? Like, but I love how absolutely ridiculous they are, like with his like hover mobility scooter and his American flag like ascot, you know, like just perfect. It was a banger of a Steve Orlando issue, and again, it's like if you ignore his Marauders run and you ignore him fucking up X-Men Green, which he butchered X-Men Green, by the way. He really fucked that up. But
he only didn't stick the landing. It was Green has had its highs and its lows.
Yeah, it has its lows when Steve Orlando showed up and fucked it up, right? Like, as before, it was like, oh, it's a funny book, you know, like with Sauron, and like she's got like a dog and curse, and they get on wacky fucking adventures, and then like Steve Orlando's like, what if we kill the dog right away, and fucking get rid of Sauron, and we just make her like a mustache twirling villain, like, right? Like, it's like that sucks. Like, all right. But Thunderbird was great. So it's like, well, all right, he's going 50-50, you know, I guess, you know. He's batting 500. What can you do? check his notes while I revel in the fact that Benjamin Percy is writing X-Men, Wolverine, and the Predator.
Okay, yeah. We were gonna do the news section, just Keegan and I, but let's talk about him writing Wolverine Predator, 5-issue mini in September.
Versus the fucking Predator. How are you mad about that? That's the fucking best.
I'm not mad. I have to read. So here's my worry. My least favorite thing he's written was X Lives and Deads, because it was a decade spanning adventure, and that's what they described this as. It's going to span decades of these two fighting each other, and that to me sounds terrible. That sounds like
and the part that makes me mad is that Benjamin Percy has now got Rod suffering under the delusion that I'm going to read that damn book, which I hate.
You are.
My God, it's drawn. Okay, guys. Okay, it's drawn by Greg Land, the porno tracing guy, right? Famous for ripping off all of his shit by just tracing porno. It's gonna be just like throbbing cock in the wilderness.
How big is the Predator's bulge gonna have to be?
Throbbing alien cock and just homoerotic nonsense in the fucking deep forest of Canada. It's gonna be fucking great.
This is where I'm gonna say, hey Joe, would you like the last word to plug your stuff? But I feel like you just plugged something.
Throbbing alien cock. That's where you can find me. Wherever there be throbbing alien cock on the internet is where Joe of X will be. Tune in.
But also for real, Joe of X on TikTok and Twitter, right?
TikTok, Joe of X. On Twitter is my real name, Joe Blauberg. You can find me there.
Check him out. He does really fun voiceovers on his TikTok, and his Twitter is a lot of just good takes when you don't use it as much, I feel like, but when you do make a tweet, it's always pretty apt.
And I will say, anytime that anyone is fighting with Screen Rant is a good day, because they're a bunch of schmucks over there at Screen Rant.
Fuck those guys. Fuck those guys. Oh my God. How do you get, I don't understand how it's Screen Rant is it's writing to people who like comic books who just had a seizure, right?
It's a penny a word, man. That's all it is.
Right? Just bragging it out. It's the lowest common denominator. It's every time I read it, I feel like I just got a concussion. Every Screen Rant fucking article. Anyway, follow me on TikTok or wherever Benjamin Percy is writing about throbbing alien cock in the wilderness.
Keegan, I'm gonna go get another Capri Sun before we switch.
Thanks for coming on, Joe.
Yeah,
we
no
appreciate
problem.
it.
Yeah. I'll see you later.
And we're back to go around the Marvel Universe. Did you read Invincible Iron Man #7 starring your favorite character, Tony Stark?
Read. I skimmed.
Skimmed it.
No,
Honestly,
not a big Tony Stank fan. So
yeah. So this is the first one I feel like is a true X-Men crossover, whereas the last couple were just Emma showed up as a cameo for Dugan to really prove that he's writing both books, and yet it didn't have any X-Men characters in it. Mm-hmm. So this was the story of after everything we've already seen with Fei Long taking over Stark Industries and turning them into Sentinels, and we're starting to see the actual Sentinels show up in other books. Tony recruits Rhodey to go actually investigate one of the Stark Unlimited bases where they're building the Sentinels. And you see Iron Man walk up and threaten the guards, and they're like, "You don't work here anymore." And he's like, "You're going to get out of my way." And he blasts a hole in it, and he goes in and tells all of the workers to leave and makes a big scene. And then the Sentinels activate, chase Iron Man off. And then it's revealed that the Iron Man we saw was Rhodey wearing the Iron Man armor, and Tony's inside in a stealth armor, and he does some sleuthing, steals some data, and then also fights some Sentinels. So then they're both brawling with them. Tony's like, "All right, let's get out of here," and Rhodey ends up captured, but Tony gets away. And so so then we see Fei Long, Nimrod, and Dr. Stasis, our favorite trio, the next day, investigating, and Stasis is like, "Oh no, how many of our Sentinels are destroyed?" And Fei Long's like, well, we won't be able to take all the superhumans on the night of the gala, but we'll still be able to make a good dent, and then we'll clean up the rest. And so it's, and you know what? It's a good thing that we caught him, because now the information about us taking out all the superhumans isn't going to get out there. So then it cuts to finding out that, oh, and then they kill one of the employees who happens to be standing there. Just like Nimrod just murders his ass. And then we see that Tony did get out with the data. And he's like, oh, I got to call She-Hulk and let her know that they're not just coming for the mutants. They're coming for everyone. And then She-Hulk answers the phone. She's like, I don't have time, Tony. Rhodey's been arrested. And he's like, yeah, but you're going to get him out, right? And she's like, they're not putting up bail. They found a body, Tony. And Tony's like, oh, no, my friend's been accused of murder. And then he gets all mad and he starts beating up his own armor and gets bloody fists. And that's the end of the issue. So, you know how I talk about, like, I like Dugan when he's writing like sci-fi antics, and a lot of times his portrayal of the soap operas I don't enjoy as much. But the him and Rhodey, like Tony's inner conflicts and stuff, I think are a really kind of bland portrayal here. I am liking the trio, the Fei Long, Nimrod, Stasis, MODOK, kind of like that whole little, like the collaborating Orcus characters that he's really focusing on.
Yeah,
like they're fun to read.
Yeah, I enjoy them a lot. I wish we could think of like a good parallel that's not like Squat and Babu, but I like them a lot.
It's an enjoyable thing, and
quartet.
yeah, I was gonna say it was a trio we were originally thinking, but we've only seen MODOK in the last X-Men issue, and we're seeing Fei Long a lot more. We saw him in both Dugan issues this week, so I think quartet's a good way to put it. Or maybe the true trio is Stasis, Nimrod, Fei Long, and MODOK was more of a cameo. I don't really know, but I'm enjoying that little brain trust. It's really fun to read. We only got a page of them here. I don't know. Iron Man's not a great read, but it is getting really clear. It really is going to be a heavy part of Follow Back. So we'll keep reporting it back to you guys. And I don't know. I'm really curious to see how interconnected the Follow Backs like threads are. Like, it's clear everyone is going to be dealing with mutant kind basically getting in the worst position they've ever been. Just like everything's going wrong. But it kind of feels like Immortal is got one thread happening. Red is going to have the Apocalypse stuff going. And then Dugan's books are specifically the Fei Long stuff. And well, they'll kind of intermingle in that they're all happening at the same time. I don't know how much like they're going to relate to each other. It might just be all of this bad shit's happening all at the same time. I don't know.
It might end up being one of those things where it's like any one of these things the mutants could survive.
Right.
But all three at
once. It's
the
weight of all of it happening at once.
Yeah, exactly. It's too much to bear, and that's why, whatever X is falls. Yeah.
I think that's a good call. Deadpool Batter Blood.
It happened.
It exists. So Rob Liefeld likes to come back and write Deadpool every few years because he'll never let anyone forget he created the character. I don't know that copying and pasting Deathstroke and making him meta is like that big of an accomplishment. I feel like what makes Deadpool resonate with people is on the shoulders of guys like Joe Kelly and Fabian Nicieza and the other writers who have even Jerry Dugan, like that's how he got his start, was writing with Brian Posehn, writing a really long, really loved Deadpool run. It wasn't my favorite, but
yeah,
there are a lot of writers that have contributed to why Deadpool is as iconic as he is, and I don't know that it's Mr. Liefeld. This issue was whatever. As much as I'm loving Alyssa Wong's Deadpool, I am equally as uninterested in this book.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the Rob Liefeld. It's like the big meaty men slapping meat of comics.
I think this is it for Shark Week. Shark Girl Week.
I think this is the end of Shark Week.
So, I can't drop enough thank yous for this. Thank you, Keegan, for humoring me. we missed first it was stuff in my personal life, and then it was yours to an extent. But between the two of us, we missed an entire month. It actually ended up being 5 weeks in the end, and so this was my crazy idea for, hey, before my twins are born, what if we don't just catch up by doing really short conversations, but we actually release an episode a day and we make it a big deal? And you signed on, and then I kept making it a bigger project, like this blowout episode where I made you sit down with a different guest for each book, and you were so game for it all. So thank you, my friend.
It's been a blast of a week. Like
It's
it's
been so
been
much fun.
hectic. It's been hectic. It's been crazy. It's been nonstop, but it's been a fun experience and kind of like a fun experiment in podcasting.
It's been a blast, and it's kind of been, I don't want to say a last hurrah, because we're gonna keep up as much as we can, but we're recording this last episode. I have 11 days until my twins are born. So this was really our last chance to do something on this scale. Well, we're going to try to get our normal episodes out. I think extra episodes, bonus episodes, those are all falling by the wayside for a few months. So cramming this in and getting as much FaceTime with you as I have and getting to interact with our audience as much as we have has been amazing.
Absolutely. I've loved it. I've loved interacting with everyone, especially on the Discord as we've been doing this.
Yep.
It's been quite interesting. But yeah, I mean, especially with you about to be a dad thrice over. I am now working at a school that's about to start a year-round schedule, so I have like 3 weeks left of summer.
This is news to me. You had not dropped this one on me yet.
Yeah,
I didn't know you were going to. So do you get more breaks throughout the year?
Yes.
Okay.
It's like a shorter summer, but now all of our other breaks, like spring and fall, are 2 weeks long.
That is sick.
My first day of work is July 12th.
That is that an all of Arizona thing, or is that just this school you
just this
happen
district
to?
that I'm going to.
Wow, I didn't know anyone was exploring a model like that. I'm fascinated.
Yeah.
Here in California, they wouldn't do that because they refuse to pay for air conditioning like that.
I'll see. In Arizona, we have no choice but to have air conditioning all year. So
that is fair. I can't end the thank yous there. I gotta thank everyone who's on the show today. Thank you, Shea. Thank you, Owain. Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Meg. It was so great hearing from all of you. Thank you to everyone who jumped in on the questions. Thank you to everyone who jumped in and watched every episode. I know it was a lot of content. If you're catching up and it's been a few days, we still appreciate you just as much. Thank you to everyone who checked out the merch shop. And if somehow you want Shark Girl Week stuff and you're seeing this the day the episode comes out, you have until midnight. I'm taking it down at midnight, and probably about the time our next episode drops, the next wave of stuff will hopefully be coming out. And yeah, Keegan, any other?
It's been an absolute blast, and yeah, I want to echo the thanks to everybody, to everyone in the Discord, to all of the guests. You guys have been fabulous. Thank you so much for working with us. It's been great. Until next time, remember, soft serve over ice cream. Certainly. Now, through the magic of time travel, you're going to see one of our guests. Just so you know, I'm now going to edit you going in between each one.